Thank you, Mr.
Thanks very much to UNPO and to all of you for being here today. It's a great honour to speak with so many esteemed speakers who have done so much to profile the Baloch cause. As many of you will know, I've worked with the Baloch National Democratic Movement in an attempt to bring international attention to the human rights abuses in Balochistan, both on the Iranian and the Pakistani sides. Much of this through my articles in the Guardian newspaper and elsewhere. What I want to share with you today are some tentative draft ideas on the potential way forward for the people of Balochistan. I speak as someone who has been involved in more than 40 years of campaigning to support movements all over the world that have been struggling for the right to self-determination. From Zimbabwe in the days of white minority rule in the 1970s, to Angola, East Timor, South Africa, and many other national liberation movements. And I'm bringing to the table that experience and that knowledge of how they succeeded in moving from a regime of occupation to a successful liberation movement that secured independence. Because that really is the big challenge for us now. How do we get Balochistan from where it is at this moment to where we want it to be in the future? Now, I speak as a friend of Balochistan, but I'm very mindful that the future of Balochistan is a matter for the people and national movement of Balochistan. It's not up to me or any other outsider to make any such decisions. I offer advice, experience, knowledge, but the decision on the future of Balochistan must be the decision of the people there. They must decide their own future. So what I'm doing today is offering a few points and ideas for consideration. These ideas are provisional and tentative. They're not mine alone. They're the result of discussions that were had between a group of Baloch activists and myself in Geneva in 2010, when we went there to lobby the United Nations. And they really boil down to the recognition of three major problems. Three major problems faced by the National Democratic Movement of Balochistan. Firstly, the lack of unity within the Baloch movement. Second, the underrepresentation of women within the Baloch movement. And thirdly, and perhaps very importantly, the absence of a roadmap to secure a negotiated political settlement. Those are the three big challenges we face. So the first one is, of course, the Baloch National Democratic Movement has got to find a way to get more united. The lack of unity, the divisions that exist, are a major obstacle towards advancement. To create a national united front is fundamental to success. And right now, we have a great deal of disunity. Many disparate parties and guerrilla movements, often with competing sectarian agendas and political rivalries. Whatever those differences are, surely there are fundamental principles on which they can and should all agree. That strikes me as absolutely crucial for any advancement. And if you look all throughout history, national liberation movements have only won when they've been united. In a few instances, I'll come on to an example in a moment, in a few instances they have won despite disunity, but it's taken much longer and resulted in a consequent bloodbath. So for me, the unity of the Baloch movement is so important. People have to learn to sink their egos, to sink their particular agendas and histories, and recognize the common issues that can unite them. Now, we saw the consequences of division and disunity in Angola in the 1970s. There were three competing national liberation movements: the FLNM, the MPLA, and UNITA. They all fought their own sectarian quarter, and that delayed the process of winning independence. If they'd been united, they would have won independence in Portugal many, many years earlier. And then after independence won, there was a bloodbath, as these three movements then fought each other for control of the new state. Hundreds of thousands of Angolans died, and people are still living with the legacy of that sectarian civil war. Now contrast Angola with South Africa. In South Africa, the African National Congress was able to present a program, the Freedom Charter, which united the disparate elements of South African society that wanted to end apartheid. And the ANC succeeded in uniting at least 85% of the non-white population behind its broad-based, inclusive unity program. And that's why, thankfully, South Africa, post-apartheid, did not have the bloody sectarian experience of Angola. And I think this shows that division does weaken national democratic movements, that unity is strength. A united national liberation movement is a stronger movement, a more effective movement. So that surely has to be one of the key aims of the Baloch people. The second big challenge is the low levels of women's participation in the Baloch national struggle. Now, I'm aware that in Balochistan, in certain instances, women have been involved in those protests. There has been women's participation. But overall, we have an absolutely catastrophic underrepresentation of Baloch women. Just look at this room. Just look at the panel of speakers. When I go to the protests in London and Geneva, it's 95% men. How can Balochistan win its freedom if it doesn't involve half the population? You are denying yourself the effectiveness of the female half of Baloch people. That's completely irrational. You're undermining your weakness. No people anywhere have won their freedom if they keep women behind. Every successful movement, from the Vietnam liberation struggle to South Africa and the struggle against apartheid, women have been in the forefront, and that is why those movements have won. Right now, the Baloch freedom struggle is operating on half strength, and that's got to change. The empowerment of women is fundamental to the success of the Baloch struggle. The place of Baloch women is not in the home, it is in the front line of the struggle. And if you want to win, we really have to change it. The third big problem is the absence of a peace and self-determination plan. We have many laudable aims from many different sectors of the Baloch movement, but there is no coherent plan of how we get to where we are to where we want to be. It is absolutely essential that there is a draft program to end the occupation and the human rights abuses, and to move towards a negotiated political settlement. If you can't present that to your own people and to the international community, you are putting yourselves in a position of extraordinary weakness. The Baloch movement needs to put Pakistan on the spot by giving them a plan, giving them a series of proposals. This is what we want. This is how we're going to get from here to there. The international community also wants to see this plan. The international community wants to know, what are you standing for? How are you proposing to solve the conflict? And if you haven't got a plan, then the Baloch people are not going to be taken seriously. What I did in Geneva with my Baloch colleagues was draft some tentative provisional ideas for what we've called a Baloch Freedom Charter. I want to just briefly share with you parts of that. I haven't got time to go into the full thing, but these are just an attempt to sort of just map out the very simple principles by which we may move the movement forward. The first idea is that there should be the demand for a ceasefire and the cessation of military operations by all sides, plus the withdrawal of troops and paramilitaries to barracks, and a halt to the construction of new military bases and outposts, with independent monitoring and supervision by UN observers and peacekeepers. The second point is the release of all political prisoners and a full account of the fate of all disappeared persons. Third point, open access to all parts of Balochistan for journalists, aid agencies and human rights organisations. Fourth point, the right of return of displaced refugees, the restoration of their property and compensation for losses caused by the conflict. The fifth point, end inward colonisation of Balochistan by non-Baloch settlers. The sixth point, a UN-supervised referendum on self-determination, offering the people of Balochistan all options, including remaining part of Pakistan, self-rule enhanced and strengthened, and the option of full independence. Now, those ideas are only a very schematic outline. They're open for further discussion, refinement and amendment. But they are a starting point. And I think the Baloch national movement does need to present some credible, practical programme to resolve the occupation and secure self-rule. It's got to have that programme to be taken seriously. It's got to have the programme in order to unite the people of Balochistan. People of Balochistan want to know, what is this movement about? Where is it going? What's it trying to achieve? Without a document, they won't know. Without a programme, the Pakistanis and the Iranians will not be under pressure. Without a document, the international community will be reluctant to come forward because they don't know what the Baloch national movement wants. Now, I agree, this programme can be much more detailed, can be much more specific, but drawing on the Freedom Charter of the ANC, its great beauty was its simplicity. I think if I remember right, 14 simple points. Here's only 6. And surely, whatever the differences and divisions between different Baloch parties in eastern or western Balochistan, wherever people are, surely these 6 principles are points that everyone can agree with. Sink the other differences for the moment. Concentrate on the issues around which you can unite, and then the Baloch movement will be stronger, more effective. You'll be taking the first step on the road to a long-delayed, much-deserved freedom. Thank you.